Well, you finally did it.
Yes, I did.
30 plus years of federal service in a variety of roles. And we're going to talk a little bit about the past, well, quite a bit about the past, a little bit of ground to cover there. And then we'll talk about the future, and we will allow some time for question and answers. And I'm asking Beth to bring us down memory lane, where she started her, I guess we'll call it federal career, right? Marines federal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that's fair.
And then what we're going to do there, rather than just sort of tick all that off, and that would take damn near 30 minutes in its own right, but to kind of interject in there and talk about, what was that experience like? What'd you learn from that? What'd you take away from that? What'd you leave behind? That kind of thing. So let's start from the beginning. Marine Corps.
Right.
What was it, 1980?
That's the hard part about this stuff and talking about the past is, you're reminded of just exactly how old you really are. So a lot of folks have heard me talk about the Marine Corps over the years because obviously once a Marine, always a Marine. So there's that. But frankly, I would not have had the career nor the life that I've had without the Marine Corps. I started college young. I was 16 when I graduated from high school and failed miserably. Second semester I quit, didn't tell my father. That went over really well, not. A couple months later, I realized that I really needed to get my act together because I'm the oldest of 4 kids. It wasn't like there was a lot of money rolling around for me to just play. So unbeknownst to my parents, I went down to the recruiting station at lunchtime during a break from work and enlisted in the Marine Corps. And 11 days later, I was in Parris Island, South Carolina. Now, as a short
Just
note,
out of curiosity, where were you working when you took that break?
I was working for Nutrisystem weight loss centers. I was selling weight loss programs, and I was working at a men's big and tall shop.
Nice.
Yeah, after I had dropped out of college. Actually, Nutrisystem, as a salesperson, paid pretty well, given especially how young I was. But
And then poof, you're in Parris Island.
poof, I'm in well, short note on that, my father was a Vietnam veteran. And when I told him I needed to talk to him, because I had enlisted in the Marine Corps and not told anybody, he went and told everybody at work that I was getting married. So it was a bit of a shock. And but it really cemented some things about our relationship because it gave him an opportunity to talk to me about the experiences that he had had in Vietnam in a way that he had not been able to do with previously with family members. But that's just a side note. It was another added benefit of the Marine Corps for me. So I ended up in Parris Island. Is it different? Yes.
I mean, let's face it. You're what, 20 years old?
No, I was 18.
18 years old.
Brand new
in the
18.
80s.
Yeah, female.
Female Marine Corps. I mean, that's hardcore, right?
Well,
what was that like?
I didn't know that though.
Okay.
No, seriously. I mean, when I went down, I had done the ASVAB and all that in high school because I was going to try to get a ROTC scholarship, and I was too young for that, and I was mad at the Air Force. My father had been in the Army. So I assumed when I went to the recruiting office that I was going to enlist in the Army. I didn't know anything else. I had an uncle who was in the Marine Corps, that my grandfather had served in the Army, everybody was Army. So I figure I'll go down and I'll see the Army guy. Well, he was out to lunch. This is all a true story. I'm on a limited time, I've got like 30 minutes at my lunch break. And because I had already taken the ASVAB, the recruiting station could get my scores. This Marine gunny got a hold of me, so I'm female, right? Hadn't been arrested. I was reasonably physically fit because I had been a lifeguard, and I had a decent ASVAB score. He thought he hit the lottery, and I'm telling you, he did not let me out until I had a signed contract. And 11 days later, I was at Parris Island. This happened like this. So, when we're going through the book of what you sign your contract for, Of course, they're pointing me towards all the administrative jobs because I'm a female. It's the 80s. We're not allowed in combat roles. Well, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. Would you please stop telling me what I can't do? You have rules, but don't tell me I can't do it. So we had a really good relationship right from the anyway. They put me in computer science. My father had worked with computers from the 60s on, and so there you have it. And I thought I'm going to hate this because I hated programming in high school, but it was better than being admin or a truck driver. Those were sort of the options available to me. So I get to Parris Island. It is exactly what you think it would be. It's not fun. It's physically challenging. The worst part is the isolation. You're not allowed to talk to anybody. You don't get, your communication is by mail, which is really weird if you think about our hyper-connected world now. You don't see a newspaper. You don't hear the radio. You're completely isolated from the rest of the world. But I got to say I'm a Marine at the end of it, so.
What'd you learn from that experience?
You can do anything you decide to do. My father was pretty clear, but when I was going down there, he was like, keep your mouth shut, which for those of you who've met me before, can you imagine at 18? I didn't know any better. I really didn't. And my father said, keep your mouth shut. Do what you're told. You'll be fine. And when you think you can't do it, you can do it. You'll be fine. And honestly, that played over and over and over and over and over again in my mind. And so, anyway.
So confidence is high. You leave the Marine Corps, join the reserves, if I recall. You're an instructor at Quantico.
Computer Sciences School, yep.
Join a little old contracting company and end up at U.S. Customs.
Yep. Met this guy, Luke McCormack.
We both work there. You end up in the operations center for a hot moment, and then ended up over in field support, and you're out there dealing directly with the operators.
So I was actually in the Network Operations Center, and at the time we were IBM Green Machines, and the deployment team needed some help. And I was also teaching IBM's SDLC for the Marine Corps, and so I got to go on a field trip out to Southern California and actually go to field sites and install controllers and Green Machines. And I got back from that trip and I said, this is the greatest job in the entire world. Because everything you do when you're in deployment is directly making the operator's life better. You're giving them more technology, you're giving them newer technology, you're fixing things that are broken, you're teaching them how to use the technology. I mean, again, mainframes and Green Machines, but still, something's better than nothing. And I came back off that trip, and I went to Mickey, and I said, please, can I come work for you permanently? Transferred into deployment, and to this day, I've done that job twice. I did it for that point, and then went to California. When I came back, I did it again. It is the very best job I've ever had in my career, because it has a direct impact on the mission operators, and you can see it, you can feel it. You walk away, they're not mad at you. They're you've made their life. It's different from a help desk. Right. They're very happy to see you. Plus, you get to be right there where the mission is going on. And it was the best.
So you end up making your way actually out into the field and working in the field. You moved to California. What was all that about? How did that go? What did you take away from that? Words of wisdom for the folks here. We've got folks that are at all different levels of their careers. Give us some
if you get a
pearls of
chance
wisdom.
to go work in the field, if you're a headquarters person and you get a chance to go work in the field, do it immediately. Don't pass up that opportunity, even if it's temporary for a little while. There's at least with DHS, there are always opportunities during crisis situations. I would suggest go when it's not a crisis as well. And see what it's about on a day-to-day basis, because I think we all come together really well when it's a crisis situation, but there's a whole lot of other work that needs things that need to get done and could be better and could be optimized and could be fixed. If we had some folks out there during sort of normal op tempo and understand sort of the normal day-to-day operations and ways that you can help, ways that you can provide support and guidance. I can't say enough about go to the field if you get the chance. But also by the same token, if you're out in the field, come do your time at headquarters. It's not, at least the folks that I know that like being close to the mission, it's not high on their list of things they want to do, but you bring something to the headquarters entity that is desperately needed. And that's a feeling and an understanding and the voice of what's going on out in the field.
So what was that like, sort of entering on duty out in the field? Here comes this young whippersnapper from headquarters out into the field
Los
environment.
Angeles.
A lot of agents, a lot of operators, mostly men out there. Here comes Beth, you know, large and in charge. What was
Well,
that like? What was that experience like for
I
you?
mean, look, I'm coming out of the Marine Corps, so in terms of the male-female ratios, I don't know if anybody knows anything about the Marine Corps. About 14% of the Marine Corps at the top end is female. On a good day, it's 14%. Most of the time, it's less than that. So in terms of working in a male-dominated environment, that felt normal to me. I will say, as a side note, I'm disappointed that we're not better now. That was, 1992 when I went out to the fields. We're not better today than we were in 1992 in terms of ratios. One thing I found when I got out, the place I went to work out in the field the first time was called Terminal Island, California. And so there's a federal building where we worked and a prison. So it's an awesome place to be. Like, please, God, don't let there be an earthquake and the bridge collapse and me get trapped on this island, because it's not going to go well. But what was really interesting is at the time, I think you probably remember this, Luke, there were like 2 people up in Chicago working on an AS400. There was a couple of people and contractors at the San Diego law enforcement sort of place down in the valley. But bottom line is there weren't people in the field providing direct technology support. It was very centralized at headquarters, and they would go out to the field and provide support. Well, you can imagine people having to travel out to the field, that interval, that distance between, time distance between when somebody comes out and then the next time they can come out, it can be pretty long, pretty protracted. So my getting out to Terminal Island, they were thrilled to have me there. I actually I'll never forget this, I had a guy come up to me in the lunchroom one day and said, "Can I buy you a pair of roller skates? Because I think you need them. Because, you're just running around, everybody needs help." And I worked for field operations in Legacy U.S. Customs. So you had the agents upstairs with Legacy Office of Investigations, and then the field office, so that's LAX and the ports of entry and those kinds of things. But then the agents, the investigators, were upstairs, and they were 2 separate offices, and I worked for field operations. But they would loan me out to the Office of Investigations. I was sharing with you the Mizuno money laundering case, right? Mm-hmm. Where I went out to, so I got to do really cool things, like they've got this big money laundering case and no technology, and there was this new technology called local area networking with file servers and everything. And they asked me to go out to Las Vegas and stand up a NetWare server so that they could process the documents for this money laundering. It was an enormous money laundering case at the time, and there was a tremendous amount of documentation. And of course, all that has to go to the defendants and back and forth. And so, so I got to, when I say directly supporting the mission, like literally you get to go out and be part of providing hands-on technology to support their case. And then you and I went on a search warrant once.
Yeah. Quite a journey. We won't get into that one. So why leave the field? It sounds like the dream job. Why come back to good old headquarters where it's all stuffy and bureaucratic?
So the first time I came back because my then husband got out of the Marine Corps, and we came back to Virginia to be closer to family. And I went back to deployment. I went back to doing the deployment work. So to me, even though I was leaving the field, I wasn't really leaving the field because I was going right back to traveling all over the place, and I was just getting to go more places,
And at this
including.
point in your career, are you thinking, hey, I can see myself being the head of deployment someday, or what are you thinking? Do you even remember, or are you just doing the job and
I do, because
enabling the operators?
Yeah, so I did the Y2K stuff, and at the time, my boss was, she was starting to talk about retirement, and I thought, wow, it would be really, that would be a really cool job to have. She's got like this fantastic job, and then I ended up pregnant, and with my first child, and I thought, okay, well, I'll do this thing where you go on maternity leave and then you come back. And so I did. I went on maternity leave. And 3 months into maternity leave, I said, nope, can't go back to work. And so I didn't, and I resigned. And that was really a difficult decision to come to from a career standpoint. I was, I wasn't very young. I was sort of had matured in my career a little bit, and the reality was that position was probably in the cards for me, the being the division chief there over deployment. But anybody who has family understands sometimes that is far more important, and I just couldn't see going back to work, and so I didn't. And I ended up we moved back to California. And when I was pregnant, and then not too long after that, I was pregnant with my second child, and 9/11 happened. And that changed everything. Changed everything about how I thought about what my family was going to look like and what I thought my career was going to look like, because I had not planned on going back to work for some time, if at all. And in 10 minutes, the whole universe shifted.
And then what? You're back in headquarters.
No, I went back to work at Otay Mesa. I called up. I was in Southern California, right outside the back gate of Camp Pendleton, and which is very near where I had worked previously. And I called up the IT lead down there, and I said, I need to come back to work. This is nuts. And so I went back to work at Otay Mesa. I took like two grades down, non-supervisory, on the ground as a LAN admin. I just said I need to be back here supporting the mission. And then there was a position that opened up for a branch chief that I could apply for because I had status in the grade, and I guess I ended up on a list. And somebody called me and said, hey, we'd like you to come back to headquarters. Somebody. You should leave Southern California and come back to Virginia. And so I did.
So you bounced. I'm going to fast forward a little bit because I didn't realize we're
I talked too much.
and I want to make sure we have some time for question and answers. So you bounce back and forth, continuing to progress in responsibility, back and forth between ICE and CBP and headquarters, et cetera, et cetera. You make your way from the ICE deputy CIO, and then get asked to come to headquarters.
Yeah.
And as Tom Winkowski would say, I said at her former ceremony, become a headquarters puke, Tom used to always call me. What was that like, and was that a tough decision?
It's a miserable decision.
Sort of, what did you learn from all of that?
It's a miserable decision. I had the best job at ICE. I loved it. I was having a ball. But I mean, think about the circumstances. You know that the CIO position at the department is a political position, so it has a time limit on it, right? Even when administrations stay the same, that position changes. And I knew that actually I think he had already retired, or he had announced his retirement. The career Fed, which is the deputy CIO, had announced his retirement. The next one in line, who was running operations, had made it clear that he was retiring. And so I'm sitting down at ICE going, okay, so who's going to be running the place? And, you know, I make jokes when I talk about John asking me to come up, and I said no, and he had talked me into it. But the reality is, I did say no the first time because I didn't think it was the right move for me. But then, you know, you take a moment and you look at what's going on, and then it becomes, it's not about you anymore. It's not about you even a little bit. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll go to headquarters for, you know, a hot minute, and then I'll go back to ICE or CBP or one of the components. I'll just go do my thing, you know, cover it during the transition. This was my thinking, and I'm an idiot now looking back on it, but whatever. And when I got up to headquarters, I thought, all right, fine, I can get up there and I can fix a few things while I'm there. You know, I'll fix that wide area network that's been driving me nuts. You know, there's a couple other things I'd like to get put right? Because when you're sitting down in the component, you know headquarters is all screwed up. You just know it, and you know if you get up there, you can get your hands in there, you can fix it.
But you also started pulling a lot of talent up there, right? And that's when you were reaching down into the various components, bringing them up to headquarters. You were doing a lot of mentoring, really focusing on elevating the women in the organization and making sure that there was a good, healthy balance there.
Yes.
And I think you can describe it. I don't want to.
Look, I mean, I mentioned that the circumstances today in terms of numbers are not any better than they were in 1992 or 1991.
Why is that?
I
You had to put your finger on it.
I think that there are not enough young women who know about the various missions at DHS, who know how they can serve. We appeal to veterans. I say we. DHS really appeals to veterans. I had no trouble recruiting veterans to come to DHS. Any part of DHS, whether I was at ICE or CBP, didn't matter. I think the challenge is getting our messaging out there about the importance of the DHS mission to a community that maybe doesn't understand as much about DHS. I mean, look, if we look at the news and that's all you hear and know about DHS, it doesn't sound like a particularly pleasant place to work. And look, some days it's not, but what we don't talk enough about is how amazing it is to be part of a community serving something greater than yourself. And I think the other part is, you know, the challenge with attracting particularly women in technology fields is there are a lot of other opportunities out there, and there's a lot of other hardcore recruiting that's going on. Cyber talent, there's a lot of competition. CX talent, there's a lot of competition. I think we need to do a better job in DHS of really highlighting the fabulous missions and people that we work with, that we support, that we serve. There's so much goodness there.
Let's take some questions. Let's get one in the back there. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh.
So, Beth, I mean, you've had such a fantastic career, going 100 miles an
Close,
hour
close to, yep. There you
going
go.
100 miles an hour every day to about, what, 10 miles an hour a day? What do you do all
Oh,
day?
you mean right now?
Yeah. What do you do?
Oh, no. I'm selling a house, moving to another state, getting one out of college, got another. Yeah, I mean, no, I'm still going 100 miles an hour. I'll make stuff up if I don't have any.
Somebody in the back there.
Hi, Katie Lindy, headquarters. Given the vast experiences that you've had and the opportunities that you've had at DHS, what has been the most professionally challenging part that you've had in all of this? Has it been a specific problem set? Has it been a kind of, coworker that you've dealt with? And how have you maneuvered through that? Because going between the field and headquarters, there's a lot that you deal with right there.
I can't wait to hear this answer.
I think you're going to be surprised. I'm my biggest problem because I do go at not 100 miles an hour. I go about 200 miles an hour. And I have absolutely no patience. And I had hoped that having children would help me develop patience, and it did for a minute, but then I reverted back to my natural state, which is, somebody described it this way one time. There was somebody that I used to work with who asked another coworker why I didn't like him. And the other coworker said, it's not that she doesn't like you. That's not it. You're either with her serving the mission, like helping get where, or you're in the way. And the place you don't want to be is in the way, because I just don't do well at slowing down enough to figure out how to get people out of my way nicely. And so I haven't, and I don't, it's a little funny, but it's not, because I can be brutal. And I have left some real pain in my own wake. And you can make the excuse that it's in service to the mission, and which by the way, I've been telling myself for 4 decades. But the reality is, as you progress, the most important thing in your career, the single most important thing, are the people and the relationships. And I've done a really good job at developing close relationships with subordinates and developing people. And I have a whole cadre of people who and I'm just not bragging, it just is what it is, that would literally follow me anywhere. If I called them and said, I need you to come to this job and do this, even though it has nothing to do with what you've ever done before, I know of several dozen that I could call on who would answer that. The problem is the peer relationships and managing up. I have always been terrible at managing up. My peer relationships are great if I think you're on the same team that I'm on. So in saying all of that, if I've learned anything, it would be take a breath every now and again.
Some good self-awareness there. Other questions?
It's a little late. It's all right.
Just saying that mightily because she's within striking distance here. So, I don't want to push my luck. Tom, I think you had a question.
Yeah, just a quick one.
Let's get the microphone, Tom. And I know there's other questions. You got a powerhouse here. Please ask her questions.
Beth, to the young person who's in the first 1 to 3 years in government, what would you advise them to do?
Listen. I think one of my strengths, even though it is, attached to a bulldozer, is listening to the operators. Not assuming that because you're the technical person that you have the answers to their problems. You need to understand you understand the problem first. Because no matter, and the other thing would be to talk to other people, because no matter how smart you are, no matter how technical you are or how talented you are, Albert Einstein +1 is still better. So that's my other pitch on the relationship piece.
Yeah, when you figure out the ultimate win is not being the smartest person in the room, that's when you're
Awesome.
That's when you know you're in a good place.
Yeah.
Other questions for Beth? Well, maybe some folks are thinking about that. Let's talk about. Here we go. I want to let you give us 2 minutes on the future as well. Fast forward. We have a question over here. The lady in the glasses. Be bold. Ask the questions.
Hello. I know
Hi.
I'm short, so I should stand up.
It's all right.
When you were pulling people,
Microphone up to them. There you go.
when
All
you
right.
were pulling people up from the components that you saw as leaders, what were characteristics that you were looking in? So for people that are 5, 8 years out of, college and kind of like going from being that person on the ground doing the work to now leading other people, what's kind of that piece that I guess you think is like the most transitional there?
Oh, I love that question, because this is something that comes up a lot when you're mentoring people. We've had people, at the for those that are familiar with the government, GS-15 level, who really will say they aspire to the senior executive service. I would say that make sure you're doing that with intention, that you want to lead people. because it's not about the title. It's not about the money. I mean, not if you're in the government. Because once you move into those higher level positions, you're taking on accountability and responsibility, and your big chunk of your job is other people. It's not a technology thing. It's not delivering a solution. It's getting other people to do that work in a way that's meaningful for them and in a way that helps them move forward in their career. So I would ask, if you think you want to be in a leadership position, make sure you want to be in a leadership position, because that's about people. And if you're not going into it with that mindset, you're probably not somebody I would want on my team, because it's about the people, not your ego, not your title, not those things. So the thing that I'm looking for most in folks that I want to develop are people that genuinely care about other people. And will hold them accountable, because that's really important.
Other questions? Talk about the future.
Oh, we got one more back there.
Okay.
It was an almost I want to ask a question.
Question, come on, do it. Be bold.
So my question is, you said you took a couple of years break between your jobs as a mom, and I myself am a mother, and I took about 3.5 years after graduate school to stay with my child, and it was very tough to get back into the workforce, because and I was in full-time graduate school, and no matter what I was doing, it was always, oh, you're out of the workforce. So it doesn't show on your resume. So I feel like there's a disconnect between hiring women as skilled workers, and most of them drop out of the workplace because they're not given that opportunity. So what is, well, I know you speak for yourself, but what is your experience with DHS and the hiring practices so that women are encouraged to get back on the workforce once they leave their family? Because I actually did research on gender studies while I was in grad school, just so I can quantify and show that it really affects the workforce when moms are not allowed to get back on it. So that's my question. My first question.
Boy, we need, we're not going to have enough time. And I say that when I was up at, I did my undergrad and graduate work at Johns Hopkins, and I was with a group of law enforcement professionals. We were in a cohort type program. And that topic came up as a research item for women in law enforcement. I would say the exact same thing applies for women in technology. Like the ability to take time out, a gap in your career, to be a mom, it makes it really difficult. I said, when I came back to work after 9/11, I was out for 3 years and it would have only been 2, but the security clearance part took forever. Because I was already a Fed and I had been a Fed, but I took 2 grade levels down and went to a non-supervisory position. So I had been a GS-14 supervisor, whatever, and then I went back in as a GS-12 non-sup land admin. I mean, I went from being basically like a branch chief to a basic land, IT support, direct IT support. That was my decision, and I wasn't there very long in that role. But you're absolutely right. I feel very lucky because I had people I could call on. I literally called somebody and said, "Hey, I want to come back to work," and it happened. That opportunity does not always exist, and let's be clear. So if you are a female or a male, I don't care, in a senior leadership position, keep your eyes open for those women who have made that personal decision to step out and be with their families at a critical time, right? Because as a society, we need that. We need moms and dads, not one or the other, but as a primary caregiver to get our kids right. I think it's critically important, and I think we're terrible at it. I'm looking at you, Lisa, on CTMS, because that's probably one of the greatest aspects of the cyber talent management system that DHS has. in that it does offer you the flexibility to go out and come back in and go out and come back in and go out and come back in. It's, you know, that part of it's revolutionary in terms of federal government personnel system activities. We need to do better. We absolutely need to do better. Yes, Lisa Dorr, right back there. Yes, if you're in, especially if you're in cybersecurity and you're looking for opportunities in the federal government, please go see Lisa. The program is amazing. It allows the managers in government to get really great talent. But for you as a person, in terms of flexibility, there's no other part of the personnel system in the federal government that's like CTMS. It's a step in the right direction, but it's not enough.
Let's fast forward, talk about the future, and we'll wrap it up with the future. Just paint a picture of what the future looks like to you, what you hope it will be, and then maybe tell us a little bit about your future.
If I could wave a magic wand, the issues around being able to step out and start a family and not feel like you've stepped off the career track, I'd fix that. If I could find more young people, not just women, but cognitive diversity across the board, diversity of all kinds makes us better. And so while I love my veteran colleagues, and I do with my whole heart, that can also lead you to a little bit of groupthink, because even though I'm female, I'm a veteran. When I get around other veterans, I think, talk, and act like a veteran, not necessarily leaning towards the more female side of things. And I think that if we can find ways to attract more people to public service, not just DHS, of course, that's where my heart is, but public service writ large, I think we're better as a society. Again, being in service is a two-way street, right? It helps you as a person, and I think it offers opportunities as well.
Beth, congratulations on a stellar career.
Thank you.
Round of applause for Beth.